Hello, so in this video, I wanted to clear up a few things about the Sun line, also known as the Success line or the Apollo line. Here we have Bill Gates, and I thought it'd be a good example because of someone who is typically seen as the kind of pinnacle of success in our modern day society. So here is the Sun line or Apollo line or Success line um, or the Sun line. It's all of the above, and it reaches generally up towards the ring finger, and it can display. A lot of palmists like to see this as an indicator for signs of vitality, constitution, immune system, um, constitution. Also, some palmists like to see it as an indicator of artistic flair and creativity. It certainly shows these things, but what most people like to think of this of is as a kind of financial indicator. And so in this video, I want to clear up a few things around the Apollo line in terms of what this means, how to read this line, um, and how to time events on this line, and also, a few misconceptions around the Apollo line as well. So what most palmists focus too heavily on, I see all over YouTube, are, the signs of a billionaire or a millionaire in palmistry. And it's sort of um, phony, really, because these lines on our palms indicate things about individuals relevant to the individuals. Now, I've seen palms of millionaires who don't have these supposed signs of being a millionaire. I've seen, I've seen the palms of millionaires or billionaires, not in person, without these strong and deep sun lines or Apollo lines or success lines. I've seen them. So it shows us a couple of things: how we feel, how we value wealth, what money means to us, what success means to us, most importantly. But it's relevant to the individual. So there is no one sign fits all. There is no sign of the billionaire in palmistry. It's just fake news, I suppose, because these lines in the palm, they are universal, but at the same time they're relevant to the individual. They've been around since we've been around, and money hasn't been around forever. So it's not as though these signs of the billionaire, so to speak. So this convergence of lines here is supposedly well, this one here, this little triangle that's developed from the Mercury line rising up, which is a key sign of success, absolutely, which then turns into a little money line up here. So you've got the Mercury or intuition line, or the liver line. There's lots of names for this line. Then you've got the career or the fate line, and then you've got the headline or mind line, as it's sometimes known as, and this convergence of lines here creates this little triangle, and this is known as some sort of money triangle. Well, it's just, as I say, it's not, there's no one sign that fits all, and Neanderthal man may well have had this sign when money and financial success weren't even a thing, before even animal husbandry, before any kind of financial or banking or trading system, before the Magna Carta, before even bartering. These signs were on the palm. I guarantee you they were on people's palms back then. So it's just, part of it is sociological, these ideological kind of constructs and ways to kind of relay the information, what this information is telling us, relevant to the age that we live in, sure. But it's important to understand the individual as a person, and then look at how this information look at what it's showing us. What is it telling us? What is the palm telling me? And so this is why, for me, it's always just so important to look at the palm shape and size, look at the kind of the key features about the palm, the crooked Jupiter, the low set Mercury, yet it's still long, it still reaches past the first phalanx of Apollo. Look at the shape of the fingers, you've got a very squared off Apollo there, you know, and yet Jupiter is very sort of, I want to tell people things and I enjoy passing on information and being heard in the room. A very sort of conic lunar, but yet a very angular Venus. All these things tell us key features about a personality. They point us all into, they paint a picture about a person. They tell us what this person values, their outlook, their persona. Essentially, it tells us who this person is. And then we can start looking at the chirology, that is the lines in the palm, and then we can start to really determine what certain things mean to this person. So money, for example. Now, to some people, money is purely security. And to some people, money, it just doesn't matter at all. It's not, there are people that have incredibly strong uh, success, Apollo, sun lines, whatever you want to call them, and yet they have no money at all. So you see it on the flip side. I've already said I've seen billionaires' palms online without sun lines, and yet I've also, I've not seen this myself, but I've read many accounts of, actually, I have seen this myself, of people with no money but really strong um, success lines. So what the sun line really shows us is the measure of success. It shows us how this person feels about their own achievements. That's what it really shows us. Now, what most videos on the sun line in palmistry neglect to mention is how the left and the right hand can, what they mean, what they can show us about that same line, as in most videos. So the left hand, as I've said in lots of my videos, so the left hand shows us how we're affected internally, and the right shows us how we're affected externally. So the left shows us psychologically, emotionally, and the right shows us environmentally, practically. It's more physical, and the right's more emotional. So if a person has here so let's say a sun line that develops from beneath the heart line. I can appreciate this is upside down here, and this is probably how a lot of people aren't used to reading the palms. If on the left hand we have a sun line that reaches below the heart line, yet on the right the sun line only begins above the heart, and this can show us that this person actually earns quite a lot of money, but then it's not going as far as they'd like it to. And it's often an indicator that a person has obligations at home, children to feed, bills to pay. And so they feel like they're actually earning enough, but it's not in actual fact, in physicality, in the material world, going all that far. And so that's just sort of one indicator, and also the strength of the line as well. If it's sort of weaker on the left and stronger on the right, then again that would kind of display the sort of an opposite scenario. It's just to give you an example, but I feel that there's often a neglect to mention how to read palms uh, in these kind of palmistry videos you see online, really, because they only show you one palm and they don't provide the kind of context. In palmistry, we always look, at least in Western palmistry, and that's my background, we always look at the left and the right hand They show us the same situation. They show us the past, the present, and the future. They show us one scenario and how it affects us in different ways. So how it affects us on the inside and the outside. And just on a side note here, I plucked these pictures offline. Interestingly, I believe this person may well have been involved in some sort of financial scandal, which is kind of ironic. You've got some obstacle crashing over several areas of the life, the choices, and reaching over onto an area which affects this person's reputation, sure, but also it's kind of trying to be an obstacle, and there looks to be like some sort of, possibly, it's not a clear image, an island there. I could be wrong about that. Maybe it's certainly an influence of some sort. Anyway, just thought it'd be interesting to mention, and yet I don't see it on the left. So there is, although there is a very large square here, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. So this is interesting because on this person's right palm, bear with me because I'll come back to full circle, their Mercury line is quite strong, and it turns into a what's often known as a money line. I mean, really, it's just an extension of the Mercury line. And interestingly here, this change line here that affects this person's happiness also has a direct result, a direct impact on their financial status and well-being. And on the left, we don't see this, not quite the same thing. The Mercury line is not quite as strong. We don't see the same money lines here up on Mercury. So what this is telling me is that this person has excellent instincts, has made something of themselves, probably come from, yeah, I don't know about their background really. I'm not going to go into this too much. However, I can say that this person loses a parent and then inherits lots of money. So there is a direct impact to this person's happiness, because that's really what the sun line represents. It represents the stability, the happiness, the peace, the prosperity, security in a person's life, which is why it's a measure of success. So this change that comes from the family here, at first I believed it was some sort of scandal. This highly impactful and obstructive event directly challenges this person's happiness, their peace, their security, stability, and at the same time it has a direct result, an impact, a positive impact on their financial well-being. So this to me is a sign of this person's one of their parents dying and leaving them a lot of money. So it's a bittersweet, obviously I can tell they would much rather have their parent around than the money. So I'm completely off course here, but it is relevant because, which is crazy because had never meant for this to actually be an example. It is relevant because the sun line, it's a measure of a person's success, and that's a very vague word, and lots of things come into that, and lots of people have their own interpretations of what that means. To some, health comes above everything. To others, it's reputation and prestige. Some merely want financial success. So it's important to understand the nature of the person before delving deeply into the chirology. So for some people without a success line, now this is a picture of Will Smith and Will Smith's palm, and you can see here he does have a money line, an extension of that Mercury line. However, there's not really much of a success line. I can appreciate it's a terrible image, You can see a bit of, sorry, you can see a bit of one there, just about. Now, people who are successful, or at least to other people successful, and don't have much of a success line, could be that their money goes out as fast as it comes in. It could be that they don't feel like they're successful, and this is evident with people who have an inferiority complex, as seen here, compensated for by other activities, likely womanizing, at least in this phase of his life anyway. Perhaps this third phalanx of Jupiter is not quite as wide now. Perhaps the Jupiter finger's a bit longer now, but there is still a slight inferiority complex, and wherever that's present, it feels like success, the measures of success, every time we achieve something, we move our own goalposts a little bit further, so we're never quite happy. And that can be a sign as to why someone doesn't have a success line, yet they are quite successful. Could be that they are extremely just unhappy in whatever, however successful they are. They just always find something to complain about, and that can just be their personality. And again, this can be determined by looking at the chirognomy of the palm. So you'll find that in the nails, really, and the fingers. So it's important to understand everything about success and what those things about success mean to that person. So happiness, find out what that means to that person, move on. Money, find out what it means, move on. Now, a person who is successful and yet doesn't have a sun line could just actually be poverty stricken, could just be the case. That's the most kind of common and blatant conclusion that you would come to. But as I say, in palmistry, never diagnose or come to a conclusion before looking at several angles, before looking for at least 2 or 3 signs to indicate towards that one direction. It's about corroborating, I forgot the word, circumstantial evidence. Corroborate circumstantial evidence. When enough things point towards one thing, then we can start to build a clear, concise conclusion. Then we can start to be accurate palmists. Now, when a sun line is, generally sun lines aren't seen reaching below the heart line. And when it is, it's a sign that a person has realized their ambition after their middle years. So their long desired ambition hasn't been realized until their middle years. Now, a sun line that starts out on the kind of percussion side of the palm, or the Mercury side of the palm, and rises up towards Apollo, towards the sun line destination, the Apollo Mount, it shows that someone is working with or for the public and gains prestige in doing so, gains notoriety and fame in working with and for the public, or at least the possibility for that. Again, it's important looking at whether or not this is the left and the right hand, and sometimes they might have a different story to tell, and it's important to kind of extrapolate what that evidence is showing us. Now, if the sun line comes from the more of the Saturn region, it shows a job well done. It shows achievements and success through a feeling of hard work, and it shows, again, it depends on which hand now, left and right, that they gain a sense of achievement through working in a painstaking way, really hard work. They'll only feel a sense of achievement through hard work, painstaking work. And what I find funny is in a lot of palmistry books and even videos online, you'll see the kind of model example of a sun line reaching down from sort of Neptune, or even the wrist itself reaching up towards. I've never seen a line that does this. I mean, look, we've got Bill Gates here, and I mean, what more? As I say, this is the sort of pinnacle of success in society, or at least that's how he's seen us. It's just unseen, it's unheard of. So this example, I don't know why it's provided in books, because you won't find even the most experienced palmist that's probably ever seen this. However, if you do see this in someone's palm, it's certainly an excellent indication, and it does show that this, I mean, at the very least, it would show that that person would be happy their whole life, and feel successful in whatever they did, and it wouldn't necessarily mean that they would be wealthy or gain many academic or prestigious achievements necessarily. It it would just mean that they are at the very least very happy all their life. So it's an incredibly fortunate sign. And what I find interesting in palmistry is when people send me their palms, they don't ask me, will they be happy? They ask me, will I be rich? Will I be wealthy? Will I move abroad? Will I marry? Will I have children? Etc., etc. No one asks me, will I be happy? And that's all that we do anything for, really. If we, the end result, if you keep asking yourself, why do I get up in the morning? Why do I go to my job? Why do I do anything? The end result will always be to attain happiness. We do this for this. That's essentially what's happening here. But it's always important to understand that sun lines, it's impossible to be accurate, really, or impartial or objective, even when assessing a sun line. It's important to understand that on one hand, it's material, and on the other, it's more spiritual. So always look at that. Now, a sun line that is in multiplicity. So if you have 3 or 4 even sun lines on a person's palm, all above the heart line, this shows that sometimes a person has too many irons in the fire, and their efforts aren't focused into one area properly. So they never really quite make it or feel like they're making it. They're exhausting themselves. They're chasing 2 rabbits and they're catching none. That's essentially what's happening. However, it also means that they will, although they'll never quite be wealthy, at least at the particular stage in their life that the lines are showing it, because lines change all the time, they will never be without money either. That's what it shows. And often you see people on the homeless people on the streets asking for money. You see them with success lines in multiplicity, which is interesting because they never really quite have money, but they're never really quite without it, because money is constantly falling into their hands and moving out of them again. Again, though, I feel like I should reiterate that it really depends on the type of palm that you're looking at. Now, a palm like this is very sort of practical and financially minded. So what we're looking at here with this person, this line certainly means wealth. Whereas if we were looking at a palm with, a very long palm with long, spindly, smooth, pointed fingers, very soft and very intuitive, very creative and expressive and sensitive, an artistic hand, an intuitive one, then this could mean, and probably would mean, a very different thing altogether. This would mean more around reputation and artistic acclaim. Now, as promised, I said I would talk about the kind of timings on the sun line. Well, the sun line is very similar to the fate line, or the career line. And that's measured by looking at the palm in itself, measuring the width of the palm. When you measure the fate line, the halfway mark is generally around 35. So look at the overall length of the fate line and find the halfway mark. That's around the age of 35. And it's the same for the sun line, because the fate line runs alongside the sun line as well. So as I've said, we do this for this. So that's how you kind of measure dating events and timing the sun line. So for Bill Gates here, where his heart line meets his fate line is around the age of about 50. And so where success really, for this person, at least how they, at least how it affects this person physically, because we're looking at the right hand, really comes into play financially, because this is what success means for this person, after his 50s. That's when it really comes into play for this person. I mean, of course, he was always successful before this. Look at the Mercury line here. It's incredibly successful. The career line is extremely deep, and that's another indicator of money as well. But this video, I didn't really want to talk about money so much. It's more about the sun line, the success line, and how to read this line, what it means, and to kind of dispel a few of these misconceptions that I see so often on YouTube and in palmistry books. So to summarize, it's an indication of achievements. It's an indication of success, and to determine what success means to the individual, you need to understand the individual, which is why I rely so strongly on this formula of looking at the chirognomy, that is the shape of the palm and the fingers, and then I look at the chirology, which is the palmar lines, the markings themselves, and also I look at the dermatoglyphics, which is the fingerprint analysis, the skin ridge patterns as well, where, you know, that's a bad example, where the apexes or apices are on the mounts, and also for any particular unique loop patterns in the skin ridges as well, on the palm as well. And all of these things will point towards understanding the nature of the person. It's really best to look at the chirognomy and the dermatoglyphics before the chirology, which is, you know, reading the information from the lines of the palm itself. And that way we can get to understand what certain aspects of life mean to that person. So what money means to that person, what success means to that person, what happiness means to that person. Find out who that person is before finding out what happens to that person. So I suppose that's the bottom line. And as I say, I'm so commonly asked, will I be successful, rather than will I be happy? And if people ask that question more, will I be happy? I think it not only says a lot about the person, but it shows, if we asked or looked to be happy rather than what we thought might make us happy, then we might be able to better understand ourselves, and to actually become happier in ourselves, in our lives, and make others happier. So I hope that this video has made a bit more sense. I will do a video on Bill Gates at some point. I've seen a lot in this person's hand, not all good either. And I would like to have a look at what this, just explaining what this palm means. And I'll touch on the success line in that video and probably relay back to this one. So I hope this was all helpful and meaningful. There is a lot more to say on sun lines. However, I felt like I just wanted to provide a bit of clarity here, provide a bit of a summary video. So let me know your thoughts. And if you've got any questions, please drop them in the comments or send me an email. I'm very happy to answer any questions anyone might have. So thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe and all that jazz, and I'll see you on the next one.